Welcome to the stream. Today at the stream, we have a unique opportunity to speak with one of the January 6th defendants, Nicholas Ochs. Mr. Ochs was one of the founders of the Proud Boys chapter in Hawaii, where he lives with his wife. He was the Republican nominee for Congress in 2020. He has agreed to speak with the stream about his political activism, his faith, his experience at the hands of the U.S. Justice Department, and his upcoming criminal sentence. Mr. Ochs, thank you for speaking with us. Please tell us first, you're facing a prison sentence that starts in a few days. For what crimes did you plead guilty and were you sentenced?
Just one crime. That's 1512 parentheses C, I think is the legal term. It's obstructing an official proceeding. So sort of interrupting a meeting in layman's terms, which I suppose there's an argument for, but it's a 20-year potential imprisonment for disrupting a proceeding.
Has anyone been prosecuted for this before the January 6th incident, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, but I know why this law exists. So this is an added on paragraph under like basically a witness intimidation or jury intimidation charge. That's why there's such a severe sentence to it. And the reason that this exists is in 2008, they prosecuted all the Enron guys. So in 2009, they decided they needed a law to give serious time to people like the boys at Enron. And they added this onto the witness intimidation. But they said specifically like shredding papers is the same as interrupting a meeting, is the same as witness intimidation. So back in 2009, the ACLU, they all had a cow. They said, you're going to use this law to prosecute people that have nothing to do with anything. They're silent now, of course.
And of course, the Enron prosecution was one of Andrew Weissman's put-up jobs where arguably a number of innocent people were imprisoned. Sidney Powell, in her book License to Lie, has documented the abuses of the Enron prosecution. So it's no shock that Weissman's fingerprints are on this as well. Do you feel that the investigation into your actions on January 6, 2021 was unbiased, apolitical, and conducted in the interests of justice?
Oh, no, there's a fair amount of bias in the system. And when you go through this, not that I didn't know it would be this way, but you learn very quickly that if you say things like there's bias in the system, that counts against you more. So at my sentencing, they like to say, how dare you say this is political? And now let's get into your politics.
Can you compare the legal process to which you were subjected to the investigations of much more serious political violence by Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and other leftist groups against U.S. courthouses and police officers?
Well, that's the obvious question, isn't it? And somebody actually posed that question to my judge, not in, during my case, but in a similar case. And I'm going to paraphrase, but she almost exactly said, it's different because they're protesting for democracy and our crowd is against it. So this is what you're going to deal with. I mean, the system is unkind to people with right-wing backgrounds, and it's whatever you get in trouble for, be it jaywalking too aggressively or whatever, you're going to find this used against you in court.
Can you please explain what you personally were trying to accomplish that day at the U.S. Capitol?
Oh, I wasn't really trying to accomplish anything other than filming and covering it. I was there for my media outlet, filming events as I often have. It wasn't a totally out of the normal day for me, as funny as that sounds. I've filmed a lot of riots before, and this was not by any means the most violent one. So you go in here and you cover these things, and then you can forget in the moment that the rules are so different for our side. And I try to remember, but well, here I am.
Yeah. Do you think that your membership in the Proud Boys affected your prosecution and sentencing?
Well, according to the judge of prosecution, yes, it did.
What did he say?
She and they made quite a big deal of my being a Proud Boy, and specifically why I don't think they even feel the need to say anymore. They'll be widely called a racist group or whatever, which of course is not true. But
can you explain what its mission? Can you explain what its mission is, and does it have a multiracial membership? Does it espouse any white racialist or fascist or anti-democratic ideals?
No, it's the Proud Boys is a drinking club, and yes, it's made up of right-wing people. But there's certainly no rules that say you can't join if you're any color or persuasion, and we do have people from all walks of life and races and etc. And if it were a racist organization, they wouldn't take me, with me in my marriage. It's just such a funny accusation to hear that I often get called a white supremacist in the press. I'm obviously the world's worst one. If my plan was to infiltrate a white supremacist organization, I don't think I would have married a black woman. It's just that's not the way you do it.
That's all right. So why did the media, which grant people their own pronouns and their own gender, one of at 47, why do they insist on characterizing your group in a way that it itself denies?
Well, the Proud Boys became controversial because we were the only group back in the early days of the MAGA era to say, if you're going to come and shut down speakers and use violence against people who are speaking anywhere, we would stand between the Antifa crowds that did that, openly saying, for politics, you cannot say this. We will not allow it.
So
And
that
we said no.
reminds me of in 1930s Germany, the Nazi brown shirts were silencing political speakers and attacking civilian politicians. And the social democrats, the moderate social democrats, formed their own militia to try to protect their speakers from Nazi thugs. They called it the Iron Circle, and they would try to defend social democratic speakers from Nazi thugs. When the police arrested everyone, the police were sympathetic with the Nazis, so they would prosecute the social democrats who had defended themselves and not prosecute the Nazi brown shirts. This was one of the ways that the Nazis took power in Germany. And it's actually, there's a term for this. It's called anarcho-tyranny. Anarchy for me, tyranny for thee. Do you feel that's what's happening in America?
Well, I do use that word a lot, anarcho-tyranny. That's exactly what's happening. I would say that when it comes to these people that shut down talks in America, it's really more of a leftist history they've had in Russia and East Germany and all that, and it's part of their playbook that's well established. And if you look at even Nicaragua in the 80s, and the same thing happened there. It happens over and over, and it is somewhat effective, but it's only effective when the people at the top are the ones enabling it, no matter what the politics behind it are, and that's what's happening here.
Do you think
These people that fancy themselves rebels, they support the absolute status quo in every way, and that's why they're allowed to succeed.
Do you think the Proud Boys or something like them are essential in an age where Antifa and Black Lives Matter can run riot and the police don't prevent them from terrorizing their political opponents?
Well, we don't really stop people anymore from stopping other people from talking, to be honest with you. If we get out and breathe the wrong way, it's 4 years in prison. So it's not that the Republican Party wasn't particularly grateful to the Proud Boys for providing a human buffer between Antifa and the people they invited to speak in their meetings.
That's right.
So good luck, y'all.
Okay, thank you. I certainly can understand that sentiment. Do you think that Mike Pence betrayed his party and in some ways his country by refusing to consider challenges of disputed electors in light of serious charges of election fraud? And do you feel that the Republican Party has taken election fraud seriously enough in the wake of 2020? Who would you praise in that?
No, there's never was an audit, and there's never going to be an audit. There's no one in the Republican Party that's willing to stand up for what regular Republican voting Americans want. That is completely unrepresented in politics by maybe 2 or 3 congressmen might provide some sort of populist lip service, but it just doesn't match what people actually want or say. And I think they're getting tired of it. It's going to cost the Republicans really electorally.
Yeah. Do you think Donald Trump should have pardoned all the nonviolent January 6th demonstrators the way Barack Obama pardoned Oscar Lopez, a Puerto Rican terrorist whose organization was involved in more than 130 bombings on U.S. soil?
People don't know the absolute extreme Puerto Rican nationalist terrorism that they tried to kill a president. They bombed congressmen, and there's a absolute. It's insane. Yes, they were pardoned, and then they end up at the front of the Puerto Rican Day parade because they're on the left side of politics, despite being nationalists. And there's just nothing like that from the right. We don't play in the same team like they do. When an Antifa gets busted, he'll have everybody from movie stars to the vice president sharing his fundraiser. Mine is banned on Facebook before he can even type it in. No one stands up for that. I'm not in the right.
Do you think Donald Trump should have pardoned the nonviolent January 6th demonstrators?
I think he should have pardoned every single January 6er there, period. The argument that he couldn't because they weren't arrested in time, well, I was. He could have got me. And there is such thing as a blanket pardon. There are legal methods. He didn't, but I'm not going to sit here and sound bitter and say that he could have done this. Hindsight's 2020. Okay, I'd like Trump to come back, be his 2015 self, win this thing, and do right now.
Did Mr. Trump or any of his organizations help you with funding your legal defense, or did anyone?
No. Certainly no organizations. Regular people absolutely stepped up and helped me out a lot, and I'm so massively grateful for that. But you'll realize when you get into dissident politics in America, all you got is regular people. There are no organizations that will help you out.
Based on your personal experiences and what you've learned since, how extensive was the role of FBI agents as instigators of illegal activity on January 6th?
I don't have any direct evidence of that, and I don't hugely preach that they were directly behind it. I think it kind of caught everybody by surprise. I think that the real reason January 6th kicked off is a bunch of angry dads showed up to be heard, and the police immediately went all in with tear gas, riot control, hitting them with sticks. They were shocked and they pushed back, and that's the real nugget of truth there.
Thank you. The courageous journalist Julie Kelly of American Greatness has documented that several January 6 defendants, forced to rely on politically hostile public defenders, were pressured to take plea deals that involved renouncing their previous political views, denouncing the MAGA movement, and essentially showing that they had been re-educated. Can you speak to this? Were you offered any similar deal?
I could have renounced everything. I didn't. Got 4 years, which is a lot. Yeah, it seems to help if you get before the Stasi court and say that re-education worked, but that's not for me.
Was there any moment where you sensed that a deal was being offered that if you denounced all your colleagues and your associates and President Trump, that you would spend less time in prison?
The only deal I got was plead guilty or we'll give you more charges. And I think they realized pretty early on, I'm not a nut they're going to crack with that one. I just said my only rules from the beginning are no snitching and no groveling.
Good for you.
I am.
All right, thank you. Pardon me. I'm not being terribly objective here. Please describe the conditions you and other January 6 defendants experienced after your arrest.
I was the first person, maybe out of anyone, arrested. They got me at the airport when I got back to Hawaii. So I did a week in solitary in federal prison on a trespassing charge. Now that's not normal. That being said, after I got out of that week, I was treated fairly normally by the courts because the media outrage wasn't fully whipped up yet. The people that were arrested a bit later than me, they had harsher conditions, and a lot of them stayed locked up even 2 years on just nothing.
2 years awaiting trial.
Yes, it's insane.
In a country where the words habeas corpus are part of the Constitution.
The rules work one way. If you're a right-wing dissident, if they can work against you, they will. If they can work for you, the rules don't matter anymore.
Do you support the petition of several January 6 detainees to be moved to Guantanamo Bay because the conditions there are more humane?
I guarantee Guantanamo is easier than the DC gulag. What's happening there, people have been kicked and beaten till they're blind. People have cancer and they're not being treated. It's better to be in prison in Bolivia.
Do you consider yourself a political prisoner?
Yes.
Can you speak to your religious faith? Are you a Christian?
I'm a Catholic and a recent Catholic. I was non-religious my whole life. In fact, I was an atheist, but I've come to the church, and I'm much happier for it.
I just want to thank you for your sacrifice and for all that you've gone through, and promise you the prayers and support of the stream's readership. If they want to write you, is there an address where you could receive letters or books or other support?
Specifically, I do want letters and books. That's what's going to help me out now. It doesn't exist yet. I had to go through processing. It might be a month, but once I'm in, you need to look me up in FCI Butner Low Prison and type in my name, find my address, and I'd love to write back to whoever writes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ochs. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, sir.